Start winning at the races with Daily Racing Form's new mobile pass performances, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures and expert analysis and selections. Go to drf.com/best and get the power of DRF in the palm of your hand. Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. The feature race at Thistledown on Saturday. It's the signature race of the entire Ohio racing season. It's the Grade 3 $500,000 Ohio Derby. 3-year-olds going 1 1/8 miles. Let's take a look at this field. Your favorite in this race is likely to be last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, Storm the Court. And Storm the Court hasn't been able to get back to the winner's circle since pulling off that big upset at 45-1, but he's kept extremely strong company, and he fits very well in this race, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it just sort of feels like the class relief he needs right now. I realized that he was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner last year, but you know what? He hasn't really matched up with the better 3-year-olds this year, and they found a really good spot for him here.
It is a full field. Storm the Court is 3-1 on the morning line, and we are expecting a solid and swift pace according to Timeform US. From Maryland comes the number 4 Lebda, who is expected to be the primary pace setter according to Timeform US. Storm the Court should be up close to the pace. And the 15 Celtic Striker, one of 2 horses in this race, also cross-entered in the Easy Goer Stakes earlier in the week at Belmont, also expected to be part of the pace. Head on over to timeformus.com after scratches. This pace projector will update. I would expect for 500,000 in a field like this, there's going to be a good pace going on.
Yeah, it's a big field. Even if you consider a couple of horses might still scratch, it's still going to be a big field, and you just don't expect them to go walking early in here.
Tom Amoss earned a Grade 1 stakes win at Belmont Park with a 3-year-old on the Belmont Stakes undercard with no parole in the Woody Stevens. He sends out Dean Martini, who was claimed for $50,000 2 starts back. Dean Martini ran just fine in his first start against winners, 84 buyer speed figure. He seems to be in excellent form, and perhaps most importantly, that race came at this 1 1/8 distance.
I like his last 2 races, Dan. You know, when he broke his maiden 2-back, he got loose on the lead. I still thought he looked good winning that race last time. All in all, pretty strong performance, I thought, first off the claim for Amoss. He got caught wide around the first turn. He got locked into a battle with a pretty good horse in Man in the Can, who won that race. I thought this horse ran well last time.
The 2 Rogue Element is a maiden. He's entered as an also eligible. So we'll move on to the 3 Rowdy Yates. And it seems each and every year, Steve Asmussen finds one of these 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and he finds good spots for them, and he makes a lot of money, and he doesn't really put them in the tough spots, and that's why horses like Rowdy Yates has made $313,000. He wasn't embarrassed in the Saudi Derby last time out. Let's go back to his race 2-back at Sunland Park, the Riley Allison Derby going 1 mile. Rowdy Yates was 1-2 in this race. He did not disappoint, winning off by open lengths. I'm a little concerned about the 1 1/8 for this horse, Mike, but from a class perspective, he fits, and he was finishing this race off.
Yeah, I mean, he was just too good for this field. He got a really good trip in this race. Too much for those horses. You know, I guess I would be concerned about the distance like you are. I'd also be concerned about the pace, Dan, because he's been in some pretty slow-paced races. And if they go faster in here, he might find himself out of the usual position he likes to be in.
Lebda is graded stakes placed as a 2-year-old. He was 3rd, a well-beaten 3rd in the Iroquois, but he's found himself in his last 2 races at Laurel Park. Let's watch his private terms race last time out, stretched out to 1 1/16. And again, you see he's even money in this race. He got up close to the pace, and he's just drawing away from this field with impunity. The buyer speed figure came back a little light, and considering the pace scenario, he's going to probably have to run a little bit better.
I think he will have to as well. I mean, I like this horse, Dan. I actually think he's pretty good. I'm not sure how much I like him going longer, though. I really like him at shorter distances. I know he won around 2 turns last time, but I just feel like this is a tougher race.
Turf to Dirt for the 5, Dak Daniels, and that has worked for him in the past. When he won his maiden, he utilized the Turf to Dirt move for trainer Jack Sisterson and Calumet Farm. His most recent dirt race was this effort at Oaklawn Park in mid-April, and he was contesting the pace throughout over this wet fast track. He briefly shakes clear. He's going to face another challenge, and he keeps on rolling along. As a son of tonalist, I think the 1.125 is within his wheelhouse. We'll see. He's a former maiden claimer that must prove his mettle against the graded stakes competition.
Right. They're stepping him way up in class here, as you mentioned, going turf to dirt, which is fine. He's got some speed as well. I expect him to be forward in this race, and I respect the fact that he has improved in his recent races for Sisterson. He's just going to have to improve again to beat this field, I think.
The number 6 Sprawl goes out for Claiborne Farm, Bill Mott, Paco Lopez, top connections to be sure. And the 2 times this horse has raced around 2 turns on dirt, well, they've resulted in both of his lifetime victories, including his last race at Churchill Downs. And there were a lot of things to like about that race. The tactical speed, the way he kind of drew clear of his competition when asked for run in the stretch, and perhaps most importantly, that 89 Beyer speed figure could be a sign of even future improvement. He's a strong contender in the Ohio Derby.
I think he is as well. He ran really well in that most recent race, a big step forward, as you mentioned. Even prior to that, though, his race 2 back, I thought, was a really good performance with a big wide move in there. He just couldn't get to the leaders, but he ran well that day. He's had potential from the start, and it feels like he's starting to put it all together.
Informative is one of those horses cross-entered in the Easy Goer Stakes at Belmont on Thursday afternoon. He's a one-time winner. He's been put in some tough spots. The Easy Goer would be an easier spot. This race offers a lot more money.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where they go because he's a horse who I feel like benefits from a big pace. And this is the race where he might get a big pace, and I wouldn't worry about 9 furlongs for him either. If he runs in this race, I think he's an interesting horse to use somewhere.
Bear Alley goes out for West Point Thoroughbreds and Dale Romans, and distance shouldn't be a problem for this stoutly bred son of Will Take Charge, who sold for $525,000 as a yearling. Beaten last time out at Churchill in a maiden race, but he was up on the pace battling throughout. I wonder if they'll take him back. I don't think he's as fast as some of the other horses in this race. Maybe they'll take him back to try to conserve some of that energy. That being said, a minor award might be his ceiling.
That's kind of how I looked at him, too. I mean, he didn't run poorly last time, and it was a contested pace the entire way. I will just point out the horse that he was dueling with is the horse to finish third in there, beaten less than a length by this horse. So they battled, but neither one of them really gave way, and they were second and third best. No, he ran fine, but I think he's going to run better than that.
Asmussen sends out the 9 Code Runner, who is no match for Rowdy Yates in the Riley Allison Derby and has yet to prove himself as a stakes horse. Take out the Arkansas Derby, he's won 2 in a row against lesser competition, but also with lesser Beyer speed figures. He's hoping this big pace shows up, it collapses, and maybe he gets a piece at a giant price.
Right. He is going to be a big price in here, so I'm not going to knock him, but I don't see the race that he's run so far anyway that makes me want to bet him.
I'm not going to sleep on the 10 South Bend, who's just a battle-tested horse for trainer Stanley Huff and Sagamore Farm. He's done some good work on the turf without winning, earning a graded stakes placing in the Palm Beach. But he's a stakes winner on dirt at Churchill Downs, going a 1-turn mile. And the last time he ran on dirt, he finished directly behind Sole Volante, who came out of that Mucho Macho Man to win the Sam F. Davis, run second in the Tampa Bay Derby, and then beat his highly regarded stablemate Ecte Indian in an optional claiming race. So South Bend has good company lines, and he's going to get the pace set up. Do you think 1.125 miles is a little long for him?
I don't know about the distance, but everything else about this horse I like, and I realized that he's been pretty good on the turf without winning any of those races. I thought he got a bad trip last time, too, in the War Champ, but I just much prefer him as a dirt horse, Dan. I'm very interested in this horse coming back to the main track here to see what he does. I'm definitely using this horse.
Soros is up next. This horse won the Smooth Air Stakes at Gulfstream, going a 1-turn mile as a maiden, overmatched in 2 starts against winners. But it must be noted that last time out, his first time around 2 turns, he was in against the highly regarded Dr. Post, who backed that race up with a good second behind Tiz the Law in last week's Belmont Stakes. Now, this horse is all upside. His distance pedigree should put him in good stead in this race. He's just going to have to improve from a Beyer standpoint. He's a little slow coming in.
He is a little bit too slow for this field coming in, but everything else you said about him, I agree with. And it's sort of the reason that I like him a little bit. I want to use this horse if he's a big price. I thought his first 2 career starts were actually pretty good. I thought he had an excuse off the layoff back in March where he was bumped early, lost position, and then tried to rally late behind Sproul. And, listen, last time they tried to put him on the lead, he got caught up in a duel. No match for Dr. Post. I actually think this horse is a little bit interesting at a price.
The number 12 Established is a little bit of an X factor in this race, isn't he? It's going to be his first time around 2 turns. It's not a great post position, and he's still a maiden. But boy, he ran fast last time out at Churchill Downs in a maiden race, a 92 Beyer speed figure. I know they probably weren't going very fast on the lead. He was down inside. He tried his best. If he runs back to that figure, all of a sudden he's interesting. And I don't think he's one of those need the lead types. I think he could probably sit in the second flight behind the early speed.
I agree with that. We'll see if he can back up the 92. He did run well in that race, even after, a little bit of a stumble at the start. And the horse that beat him per capita looks pretty good to me. That's a Chad Brown train runner who's won 2 races in a row. And this horse just couldn't quite hang with him. But this horse ran well last time.
Stormed the Court's the big name in this race. Of course, the winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And since then, look at the horses he's been in against. Nadal, Authentic, Honor AP, King Guillermo. There are no horses of that ilk in this fine edition of the Ohio Derby. Blinkers off for Peter Urton. This horse won his career debut without blinkers. Do you think 1.125 miles a little far for him? He's the class of the race. He should be in contention when the real racing begins. I think a lot of folks, though, are thinking the bloom's off the rose.
Probably a little bit. We'll see. I mean, listen, is he the horse to be in here? Yes, he is. Does that mean you necessarily want to take a short price on him? I don't know about that, Dan. His first 2 races, I will say this, his first 2 starts back this year, they weren't bad at all. He did not run well in the Arkansas Derby, but when you're, facing Nadal, going a fast pace in that race, I don't know how much, you want to hold it against this horse. I can't say I love him in here. I'm not going to be surprised when he wins.
Another Calumet Farm runner in this race is the 14 Unrighteous. This one's trained by Todd Pletcher, and he finally broke through last time out with this effort at Gulfstream Park on May the 17th, and he was 2-5, and there was a reason he's 2-5. He's basically beating a bunch of turf horses, and maybe not great ones at that, but I do like the way he grinded this out, Mike. I think he'll get the 1 1/8. I think he's slowly improving, and he actually has 1 race at 1 1/8, his second lifetime start. You're a pretty nice 89 fig.
Yeah, he didn't run poorly in that race at all either. So we'll see what happens here. He's hard to trust off of that last win, or at least it's hard to take that win at face value because it was just a race that he just really couldn't lose. And that's how Irad rode him that day. He didn't even give that field a chance to get a breather. He just went right after them. And he knew that he was on the best horse. That's not the case here. So we'll see what kind of trip he gets, and we'll see if he can take a step forward.
And Celtic Striker completes this field. It would be a tough post position if he breaks. He likes to be forwardly placed. It would be a tough pace scenario if he runs in this race. He's also in the easy goer on Thursday, an easier spot. And every time they've tried him in stakes competition so far, it hasn't worked out for him.
It hasn't. This would be the best stakes spot they've entered him in so far. He seems like a nice fit in this race. He would just have to gun it from the outside to try to make the lead.
Wide open race. Let's take a look at who we like in the Grade 3 Ohio Derby. Have to respect a horse like Storm the Court in this race, but I agree with Mike. I think you want to try to beat him at a short price. Sprawl, the number 6, just looks upwardly mobile. That last race around 2 turns, I think, points him out as a strong contender, and I think you'll get a solid price on him.
Yeah, I was hoping so too. I mean, I don't think he's going to be the 15-1 that the line has him, but maybe he's a fair price in this race. I just like his recent form, Dan. It feels like this horse still has more upside.
I'm very curious to see if Established can back up that last race Beyer. It was a 1-turn mile. Now he's going to have to go a 2-turn 1.125 in only his 3rd lifetime start. But I liked what I saw from him, and I think he's all upside for a pretty good trainer in Michael Stidham. Mike's going 6, 10, 13, 11. I want to try to get a price. I don't think it'll be the 30-1 that he is on the morning line, but I think Established will have a little bit of value behind him, the number 12 in the Ohio Derby. It's your feature race of the year in Ohio. It's race number 8 on Saturday at Thistledown and has an approximate post of 4:22 Eastern. Best of luck.